Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to our first installment of Dungeons & Dragons and Denise. Today we'll be talking about every new and seasoned player's first step to playing in a D&D campaign, creating your character. When creating your D&D character, the first things you will be deciding are your class, lineage, and background, each category holding a wide variety of options that offer many different creative routes. Your class basically determines what your character can do and what their skills are. For example, one of the classes you can choose is Rogue. Rogues are typically sneaky and very dexterous. If you want your character to excel in sneaking around, picking locks, and deceit, making them a rogue would give them the mechanical abilities to do such. Your lineage is what a character is, like a human or an elf or a gnome. Finally, your background is something that mechanically informs your character's past. If your character has fought in a war before, you may select the soldier background, which would grant you the mechanical benefits for a few relevant skills. Your background is not all that typically informs your character's past, however. Rather than breaking down the mechanics of each class and getting into the nitty-gritty of numerical stats, we're going to be focusing on crafting a backstory for your character. When starting a new campaign, you will typically be asked to provide some sort of backstory to your dungeon master. Some may ask for just a short synopsis to gain a bit of familiarity with your character, and some may ask for NPCs and locations of significance to your character as well. Regardless of how much or how little information your DM needs from you, it is important for both you and your DM that your character feels grounded in the world, and your backstory is a perfect first step in doing so. Before starting a D&D campaign, your DM will typically host something called a Session 0, where they go over the world your campaign will be taking place in, or send out some kind of world overview to their players. One of the easiest ways to connect your character to the world is to tie their backstory to a relevant location. Let's say you want to play a simple human fighter, but one of the important locations your DM talks about in their Session 0 is heavily based in agriculture. Maybe your character was raised as a farmer before going off to learn how to fight. Maybe something happened on the farm that sparked that change in your character. Maybe certain qualities of a friendly farmer still remain in your character even though that career is in their past. Now, your character has a tie to a relevant location and more depth than just being a guy with a sword. A great example of this in popular live play show Critical Role's second campaign is the character Not the Brave. Not is presented to the audience as a little goblin who's a fan of trickery, but over the course of the campaign, we learn that she had a completely different life and completely different form before being turned into a goblin.
Well, hi. My name's Not the Brave, and I am a little goblin girl.
Okay.
But once upon a time, I was Veth, a young halfling woman, and before that, a halfling.
Another thing you can do when creating your character is to talk to your DM one-on-one about your character concept and see if there's any way they would like to tie your character to the world. Campaign themes are also a great thing to keep in mind when writing your backstory, because building those themes into your backstory will not only give your character depth before Session 1, but will continue to influence their growth and development throughout the campaign. Asking your DM about themes or general connections between the planned campaign and your character concepts will ultimately enhance the narrative of the story for everyone at the table. Brennan Lee Mulligan and Abria Iyengar, popular actual play DMs, speak on this more in depth in their Adventuring Academy talkback show.
Makes sense. And all of that comes down to player trust and trusting your table. And it's admittedly much easier on a stage like this where you're like, everyone here is a trained like improviser and actor and like knows story and does story so much that you're like, I can like let off the gas and know that like people will feel the arcs and bumps of it and like fill in there. But I think knowing that you can weight on the back and throw in a little something as you're trusting your players and like course correct. It's just being look, you said being a DM is being a service top. Maybe you didn't say that. Maybe the internet said that about you.
I think the internet said that about,
Yeah, you. But I also think being a good, look, that's just true. Sorry about it. But
While Dungeons & Dragons is a game that involves a lot of numbers and a lot of rolling dice, it is important to remember for everyone at the table, it can also be a beautiful experience of collaborative storytelling. Keeping this in mind while building your character and writing your backstory will help you ground your character in the world around them and open up the door for you to work collaboratively with your Dungeon Master. Speaking of Dungeon Masters, tune in next week to hear some tips and tricks for both new and seasoned DMs looking to run their own D&D campaign. Happy adventuring!